I often tell my team, slow is the new down and real time isn't fast enough. So making sure that we do have the right cybersecurity protocols in place and keeping that at top of mind, having the highly available and high performing systems, as I already mentioned, is the table stake.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Jamie Engstrom. Jamie is the Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President of Caterpillar IT. Caterpillar is a 100-year-old company that's the world's leading manufacturer of construction and mining equipment, off-highway diesel and natural gas engines, industrial gas turbines, and diesel-electric locomotives that earns nearly $65 billion in annual revenue. Jamie's been with the company for nearly 26 years, and she's been in her current role for roughly 4.5. In her role, she's accountable for leading a global organization for Caterpillar's global information technology systems, IT risk management, cybersecurity, global infrastructure, and IT transformations. I look forward to hearing more about all these topics and her purview through this conversation. Jamie, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thanks, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Jamie, why don't we begin with the business that you're a part of, Caterpillar, certainly a storied and iconic brand in the United States and beyond for that matter, but based here in the U.S. Talk a bit about, for those who may have a thumbnail sketch version of an understanding of the business you're in, provide a bit more context if you would.
Sure, happy to. Caterpillar is a Fortune 100 company. We're the world's leading manufacturer of construction and mining equipment, as well as off-highway diesel and natural gas engines, diesel locomotives, and solar turbines. I think the cool thing about what we do is what we do to help our customers succeed. And it really is about creating and building a better, more sustainable world. We have 4 million pieces of our equipment operating around the world in every single continent. And 1.5 million of those assets are connected, which is really important as we think about supporting our customers. We're talking about information technology, and getting the insights from that data allows us to better support our dealers and customers in availability of uptime and lowering their cost to serve of our equipment. And it's really beyond just building the equipment, as I mentioned. We provide clean water, energy, food, power in natural catastrophes, often in helping people in those circumstances. So that's a lot of backdrop, but perhaps that shows my excitement and enthusiasm for what we do to serve our customers. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we're celebrating 100 years this year as we reflect on the history and the achievements of what we've done over those last 100 years. We're excited about what the future holds as well. So it's a great time to think about how we can continue to leverage information technology as we look to create that next 100-year legacy for our customers and our global dealer network.
Well, Jamie, as you noted in your description of Caterpillar's business, you've already started to get into some of the technical details of the organization, which certainly lends itself nicely to my next question, which is your purview as Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President of Caterpillar IT. Talk a bit about your role, the team you lead, and your purview, if you would.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I am Caterpillar's Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President of Caterpillar IT. So I'm humbled to have the honor to lead a global team of about 2,200 IT professionals in about 28 different countries around the world. And I provide the strategic leadership for our global information systems as we think about our manufacturing processes and our internal operations of the company. And I also lead a set of group CIOs that are accountable for each one of our major industry segments. So if you think about construction industries, resource industries, and energy and transportation are our three primary industry segments. And those group CIOs are accountable to have business relevant IT strategies that we align our strategic IT investments and our priorities to helping our customers and our business partners in value creation and value protection. I also certainly have accountability for IT risk management, cybersecurity, our enterprise data strategy in partnership with our chief digital officer, as well as accountability for our global infrastructure services around the world.
Staying on the idea of the three CIOs over the industry segments, talk a bit about how you collaborate with them and how they collaborate with each other. Obviously, an organization of your scale and as diverse as your description of the business has been, makes sense that the needs of construction versus resource versus energy and transportation would be very different. I'm sure, of course, there are some aspects of it that are also shared. Talk a bit about that collaboration, if you would.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on a very key point. We have the distinct segments that you just mentioned and that we talked about, but there is some overlap as well in the products that our customers use. So it is important that our group CIOs do work very closely together. But what's also equally important is we're very focused on what we say a customer-backed mindset. And that's inclusive of how we work with our internal business partners as well. So the way that they work together is they have a seat at the table with our senior leadership teams of those industry segments and our operations managers around the world that produce our equipment each and every day. And it's really having that lens of, I like to say, go see, act, go visit the factories and visit our customers and understand what we do to make sure that we manufacture that equipment, but really also make sure that we're providing that customer experience. So it's a lot about that visibility within the factory environment and sitting with the business partners to really understand what business problems they're trying to solve.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I also found it, having gotten to know you, fascinating that you've been with the company for roughly 25 years now, at a time when so many people jump from company to company. I'd be fascinated to understand what has kept you with the company for such a long and distinguished tenure.
Yeah. One, I started, for those of us that remember, in 1999. So it was right before Y2K. For those that remember that, and the whole dot-com bubble. So, application developers were in high demand as we were making sure that our information systems, regardless of the company that you worked in, were operational when the dial turned at the new year with Y2K in the year 2000. But all that said, flash forward, and like you said, I'm coming up on 26 years here. And the cool thing, I think, is one, it's our people and our culture around the world. I often say that there isn't a factory or an office building that I walk into in our company where someone won't buy you a cup of coffee. And we just have a culture of pride in what we do. So I'd first say it's a lot about, I believe in what we do and how we support our customers and the equipment and services that are in operation and continuing to improve that experience. But it's also about the opportunity. I've been in a number of different information technology roles throughout my career with a number of different responsibilities, just continuing to give me increased visibility to what we do as an organization and allowing me to develop. I relocated twice for Caterpillar and once was overseas. That also just giving me a huge opportunity to grow my leadership abilities as well as just understand the culture and the diversities of what we do. So I think it's that combination of also leaders taking risks on me and continuing to support my development throughout that journey has allowed me to wake up every day excited about what I do and be motivated to better serve our customers with what we do in information technology.
Fantastic. Gosh, I love that response. I can really see how this has been an experience where you've gained a lot of depth, but also a lot of breadth represented in the variety of different responsibilities you've had domestically, internationally, across different parts of the organization. Certainly makes a lot of sense that this has been a compelling journey for you for, as you mentioned, nearly 26 years. I also wanted to ask you, you have the CIO role as you described, of course. There's also a chief digital officer and a chief technology officer within the organization as well. And I wonder, How are those roles differentiated, as well as how do the three of you collaborate?
Yeah, we collaborate very closely, and it's important that we do that because as we think about the customer back mindset that we have in place to best serve our customers as things change, technology has a lot of intersection points. So our chief digital officer is focused on what we're doing to continue to improve the digital experiences that we do to serve our customers, to provide a seamless and intuitive experience as we think about the products that we have connected and their online experience with us. Our chief technology officer is focused on our onboard technology and what we're doing to make sure we're continuing to invest in the enhancements that we've got with our onboard technology to make sure that we're continuing to advance that capability on the equipment that we have in operation. And then certainly as my role of the CIO, it's that unique intersection of the onboard technology, the digital experiences that we provide to our customers, and then our internal systems around the world that come together to make sure that we're providing that end-to-end experience.
Very interesting. Thank you for that description. Fascinating how that's been trifurcated, but the ways in which you come together to ensure that you're singing from the same songbook, so to say. I know that from our past conversations, Jamie, your team has also been on a journey of going from relatively transactional work to more strategic work to a greater extent as well. And I'd love to understand, as that change has manifested itself, what have been the levers that you have pulled, you and the team, of course, have pulled in order to make this change? And I would love to maybe hear some anecdotes representative of the change, if you could share those as well.
Yeah, that's a great question because I think as we look at the rapid pace of change in information technology, it's been that way for decades. But as we look at the reliance on information technology in our own personal lives and how our customers expect, and even our internal business partners rely on highly available and high performing systems and the protections of our data, I'd say the first lever is getting the table stakes right. So as we look at the interactions our internal business partners have with our systems each and every day, I often tell my team, slow is the new down and real time isn't fast enough. So making sure that we do have the right cybersecurity protocols in place and keeping that at top of mind, having the highly available and high performing systems, as I already mentioned, is the table stake. And I'd say from that, it's also making sure that we have a solid data strategy in place. We put our data strategy in place about 5 years ago. Again, first focused on that digital experience with our customers and our connected assets and our dealer network. But then evolving from there, I think it's a lot about our operating model. And I mentioned the group CIOs and what they do to lead the business and a business-led ICT strategy of what we need to invest in on the information technology side, and then walking back from what's the data that is so foundational to shift us from a lot of manual transactional work to that strategic work. And that's really founded in continuing to execute that data strategy.
So, Jamie, as we were going through your responsibilities earlier, you talked about data strategy as an area of responsibility, as you just highlighted through the response you just gave. You also talked about the collaboration with your chief digital officer in the development of the data strategy. Talk a bit further, if you would, about that collaboration. And if you would, I would love to hear more about the substance of the data strategy and some of the exciting areas that you and the team are driving forward as a result of it.
Yeah, I think as we talked about, enterprise data is critically important, especially as we think about emerging technologies with what we can do with artificial intelligence and generative AI as an extension of AI. So the collaboration that our chief digital officer and I have is really important because when we first put our enterprise data strategy in place, it was focused on making sure that we could continue to improve our customer experience and what we could do with those digital experiences to provide insights, to help improve our customers' uptime and availability of our product. And then we expanded our data strategy into our internal data assets for our own operations and the manufacturing of our equipment to have better insights in what we do with those internal operations. Thinking about, synchronizing demand planning all the way through to better understanding supplier lead times and supply. So one good example, though, as I think about better serving our customers is what we're doing with our telematics data to provide insights back to our dealers and customers as they see alerts come off of our equipment. So we have something called Caterpillar Condition Monitoring Advisors, and what they do is they analyze the fault codes that come off our machines and our equipment to then best provide those recommendations back to the customers and dealers. And in that scenario, they were going through a number of different data sources, from our service manuals to other internal data sources that we had available, taking quite a bit of time. And as we think about continuing to connect our equipment for the importance of what I talked about with being able to better provide insights to our customers, it's a very in-demand activity. And as we connect more equipment, it takes time to triage through a lot of that data. So with what we've done with the data strategy and what we've done with artificial intelligence is we can now provide recommendations back to our customers and dealers far more quickly. And what used to take hours now takes minutes. And we always still have a human in the loop because we know that that's a balance of risk appetite and relying on a lot of these sophisticated technologies. But in being able to do that, that allows us to be able to service more of our equipment in the field and better serve those customers. But it then walks back to that foundational data strategy that we have in place.
Again, very interesting. I appreciate you sharing more about that, and fascinating the progress that's been made as a result of that, impacting a variety of constituents, as you noted. I also wanted to ask you, Jamie, I know in our past conversations, you've talked about the work that your team gets involved in streamlining supply chains for the company. The supply chain for Caterpillar must be extraordinarily complex given what you do. Can you talk a bit about the role that your team plays in so doing?
Yeah. And I'll walk back to reiterating the importance of us having a business-led IT strategy that's relevant to what the most important problems are of our business partners around the world. Supply chain is one of them. As we all transitioned out of the pandemic and saw the challenges with, the supply chain crises around the world, Caterpillar was also challenged with making sure that we could synchronize that demand planning to supply, as we talked about earlier. So we partnered with our strategic procurement division and leveraging our internal data assets and our enterprise data strategy, we put a data platform in place that allowed us to be able to have that visibility across the totality of the demand and the supply chain so that we can better plan for lead times, that we could make sure that we had a single source of the truth for our global spend and supply base around the world, which has allowed us to be more efficient in that supply planning to meet customer and dealer availability.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. We've talked about a number of rising trends, Jamie, that you and your team are taking advantage of, but I wanted to see if there are any other trends that, as you look to the year ahead, or maybe a multiple year view, that particularly excite you. Anything that comes to mind that you would underscore?
Yeah, I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the importance of artificial intelligence and what we're seeing in generative AI and what the art of the possible is there. Caterpillar has been using artificial intelligence for over 3 decades, first starting with our large 777 autonomous mining truck with a couple of those prototypes, like I said, nearly 30 years ago. But then fast forward and look at what's possible now with generative AI and what we can apply there to improve not only our customer experiences with that capability. I mentioned the condition monitoring example with our condition monitoring advisors and how we're applying that, but it's also through to our internal business operations and automating a lot of those operations, whether it's finance and accounting, and or what we're doing with things in supply chain. As I mentioned, it's a really important technology that does allow us to shift more on that strategic work. And, as an example, in the supply chain that we had the conversation about a few minutes ago, we went from a sales and operational planning process that took far more than a month to now a few days because of leveraging capability like that. I think the other thing that's important for us is smart manufacturing and really looking at and implementing that digital thread from having your capital and your equipment in your manufacturing facilities connected through the Internet of Things and leveraging that through to the modern manufacturing execution systems to look end to end across that manufacturing process to not only improve our production processing, but it clearly helps support improvement in quality. It allows us to optimize our cost structure and ultimately better serve our customers as we think about that increased quality and then just overall availability of our products and services. But as we do talk about AI, I would also be remiss if I don't mention the importance of making sure that you have a solid risk management framework and what the usage guidelines are for the do's and don'ts. Clearly, we have that applied across Caterpillar and making sure that you have the human in the loop to review the accuracy of that output, because there's a lot of value in capabilities like AI, like smart manufacturing, but all of that is a really important balance as a CIO and an information technology steward to balance that with an important risk appetite that works for you and your organization.
Yeah, very, very well said, Jamie. And I want to return to the beginning of your response that this is an organization that's been leveraging AI for 3 decades, for example. And I know from our conversations, but from broader research, this is actually a pretty tech-forward organization. And I wonder, does its history of leaning into technology and gaining advantage from having done so, does that mean that as you and your team explain the art of the possible to the organization, that it tends to be one that has an appetite and a curiosity for what is possible, as opposed to an orientation that would be centered around being much more risk averse? Can you talk a bit about that, please?
Yeah, and I do think it's important to talk about intellectual curiosity. And I often tell my team, and I do it myself, that it's important to make sure that we have one foot in the industry, but it's also equally important that we have one foot in intimately understanding what our customer needs are, what our internal business partner needs are, and how we need to adapt and apply information technology to do so. So it is a careful balance of being intellectually curious and not just implementing technology for technology's sake. And that's where I think that risk part comes in, and where we use our risk management framework, where we apply our IT controls to really understand and assess the proof of value of some of the emerging technologies once we have that clarity and understanding of what the customer challenges are. So I'm hopeful that that makes sense, because I do think it's a careful line that you do walk, if you will, between investing in emerging technology, whether it's our product technology, digital technology, or information technology for our internal operations, but really doing that proof of value to make sure we're assessing, are we getting that value creation and or the protection that we wanted for our customers?
Yeah, really interesting and well articulated in terms of the necessity of making sure that you are taking advantage of innovation as it comes about, but doing so recognizing with eyes wide open as to the potential risks and acting accordingly. Really interesting ideas you've shared. I wanted to also ask you here at the close, Jamie, anything you've recently read, listened to, and or watched that you would recommend to your peers?
Yeah, I do listen to a couple of different podcasts. I do spend a lot of time traveling and on airplanes and airports. And the one that probably jumps to the top for me is a podcast series called Acquired. And it's a series that allows you to listen to CEOs, CIOs, different innovators on what they've done to create their companies, to create different technology offerings. And they're fascinating because you really can get into, I kind of like to say, the hearts and minds of these entrepreneurs and senior executives leading very large companies into the backbone of their strategies, how they're innovating, how they're thinking of their customer journeys, and what relevance that may have to what we do and what I do.
That's a great one of my favorites as well, Jamie. Well, Jamie Engstrom, thank you so much for a fantastic conversation. It's so interesting to hear a bit more about your career journey within Caterpillar, the role you currently play, the many innovative things that you and your team are bringing about for the company and your company's customers as well. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Peter. Much appreciated.